This is Paul. Yeah. There seemed to be some concern about me being able to adjust to the idea of being a father. Now, for you that are judges, yes. That are participants in the Federal Judicial Center, yeah. Any knowledge of the crime of using forgeries to accomplish anything as a judge? Yes. Should cause you to be somewhat concerned. Now, I would think that any judge of the United States, where it's documented they used forgeries, right, would immediately be arrested and put in prison for 10 years. Yeah. Now, many of the programs and projects described in this annual report involve coordination, cooperation, consultation with committees of the Judicial Conference. Yeah. The Administrative Office, the U.S. Sentencing Commission, the U.S. Judicial Panel on Multi-District Litigation. And the court's advisory committees of judges, court staff, and others in planning and producing education programs and publications. When I was searching, I went looking for what's known as ethics. Let's say that you had an appropriation of $28,335,000 in 2017. Yeah. Employed 122 people, and you produced all kinds of literature that makes it unethical to use forgeries to issue court orders. Approximately 75% of the center's expenditures support its education training activities. And then you're devoted to these research activities. Why don't you get me every forgery that every judge in the United States of America? See, I'm kind of focused on these forgeries. Not just the forgery of the ex officio Superior Court clerk, yes. The forgery of Heidi Lee Budner, ouch, the dog of Heidi Lee Budnick, ouch. When you marry a woman, you never think that they have a look-alike that happened to be a twin sister from long ago that she never mentioned before marriage, yes, or after marriage. Oh, but this individual's had a lot to say about what's happened to my sons because they look the same. Oh. Now, my wife, Heidi Lee Budnick, is probably blaming her twin sister for all the forgeries of the petitioner signature or all the lookalikes. Yes, but I'm the married spouse of the woman. I actually blame her for not telling me. Now you can appreciate as a judge the big surprise of finding out that there are lookalikes and twins of those that you marry. Yes, that your spouse never mentioned. Now, would I put the blame on my spouse? Yes. Yes. For not telling me before we got married. Not telling me while we were married. Yes. And then having her twin sister run into the court and use invidious coercion right now. There's something bigger than the forgeries, isn't there? Ouch. The deceptiveness of having a twin. Now, in 2017, yes. The center completed 14 major research and evaluation projects and continued work on 51 others. Yeah. Provided 314 in-person and technology-based educational programs, yes, for over 27,000 federal judges, yes, legal staff and court employees, and helped to design, conduct, and teach another 33 programs produced by other organizations for 4,227 judges and court staff participants. Now, it's really good that they're spending this $28 million to help these, looks like approximately 31,227 judges and court staffs. Yes. Now, it's one thing to look at the signature of the original protection order that was served on me on Guam. Yes. And say, well, the slant of the signature is different. Because I had a copy of her driver's license, I had a copy of her birth certificate, and I had a copy of some other documentation that I don't have with me because, well, it was in my backup drives and it was in my my netbook, the netbook that got burglarized. Yes. But let's say I can prove in a court of law that the actual person that appeared in court, yes, that signed as Heidi Lee Budnick was not my actual spouse. Now, all of a sudden, we're having to call into court all the lookalikes and twins that were employed or the actual genetics of my wife that said they were her, but they weren't. Now, when I start thinking about lawsuits, approximately 31,000 judges, it's one thing to use a dog signature, yes, but it's another thing to not have the dog sign as the petitioner. When the dog signed as a petitioner for 7 years and 6 months, 4 years from the date of this, yes. And to not have an actual signature of the criminal complaint because the victim never signed. To not have a signature of the 2-count criminal complaint in Sequim, Washington. I could never prove that it wasn't my actual spouse that was victimized in Sequim. Yes, because I couldn't get a copy of her signature. Uh-oh. Looks like somebody's doing the actressing, yes, of each and every time I was arrested. Now, when you start thinking lawsuits, because that's how I think. It's one thing to have a forgery of somebody that doesn't look like the individual. Yes. It's another thing to have a forgery of somebody that does look like the individual. Yes. Now, I've been wanting to use the court system of the United States, and I mentioned during my Bible reading this morning, I'm going to get a copy of every document that's been filed in Clallam County since July 8th of 2011. And for every time I find a forgery, I'm going to find the individual that signed it. Yes. And if they look like my spouse, I would say it's invidious, egregiously invidious. It's malice and intent. I mean, I'm not just going to sue you for having somebody sign the document that it does not look like her in any way.